Hello, Livingston County. I am so excited to talk to you today about development of your creative briefs. So each village will have this task, and hopefully you'll all create 9 very unique creative brief documents to help inspire your artists. So let's go ahead and pull up some images and get started. So, what is a creative brief and what do we need to do in order to develop this? So first, a creative brief is going to include a picture of the building. It's also going to include the worksheet that you have with you today. So some pieces from that worksheet will be included to help an artist who maybe has never been to your region understand how it is that they might reinterpret and do some storytelling utilizing this as a tool. So some key things as mural committee members that we all need to keep in mind. The roles and responsibilities are something that we will have to follow throughout this process. So I include these 6 as part of this demonstration, but they really can be applied to many elements of this mural journey that we're all on together. So the purpose of this project is something we always need to keep in mind. These are a visual representation of your commitment to community investment in your village and growth. We definitely want to embrace our stories and hopefully celebrate our future through this artwork. The mural committee is not responsible for designing a mural. Something to definitely keep in mind as we write this document in particular. We're here to develop a storyboard. We're here to ask pointed questions about our communities, our villages, and really just write basic, simple sentences that define some of our background. And then we're hiring an artist to reinterpret that and create a unique work of art that will celebrate our village. So throughout this process, keep an open mind. Part of this process is setting aside our personal preferences and being objective. So we want to make sure that we're not steering the artist, but we are allowing the artist an opportunity to interpret information. And we also need to be ready to be surprised. We might not see what we expect when this is all said and done. Also, please note, for these specific projects, we will not be incorporating all of the ideas that go into the creative brief into one mural. That's not really the purpose of this particular project. While I've seen many murals where that is done, just don't expect that for these specific murals. Another thing to keep in mind is oftentimes I see communities try and add things like be experiential, be Instagrammable, but that's not really what we need to add to this. A picture of a historic courthouse on display next to the historic courthouse isn't going to garner any social media content. So if all we tell the artist is we have a beautiful historic courthouse, we may not actually get the result that we need. Visitors will just take a picture next to the real historic courthouse. Further, a carnival gimmick, like a silhouette holding balloons, is not really the goal here. We are investing a great deal of money, and the scale of this project really demands a more elegant design. So again, you're not here to steer the artist or suggest these types of things. They really can just happen organically if the artwork is good, and we are hiring really talented artists, so we will get good art. The last little bit, this is a tool and it will be used. So anything you put into the creative brief could be what inspires your artist. So be ready. Let's look at Kosciuszko County. This is an example of a creative brief, and we'll learn a couple things from what it is that they did, and hopefully we'll have some really positive takeaways. So the Denny building in Kosciuszko County is depicted here. The artist got to see pictures of the building with some pertinent information so they knew what they were dealing with as far as size, texture of the wall, and age of the wall. The next thing that the artist got to see was Kosciuszko County's very, very long artist brief. So the creative brief from Kosciuszko County was several pages long, which is really far too long for what this needs to be. So keep in mind that this is what can happen for a long, long brief that's too long. So here they mention their history, the founder of Kosciuszko County, Thaddeus Kosciuszko. Here they mention some of their makers, but specifically in the second paragraph, they mention that they're one of the largest egg producing counties in the United States. And then on the next brief page, they talked about their nature. These are all just excerpts from a very long brief. In this section, we see the mention of bird watching, abundant wildlife, and their fish and marsh refuges that are located in their Wildwood Nature Preserve. So, all of that being said, the artist was given this creative brief, a picture of the building, and the artist was chosen directly in an invitational process by Kosciuszko County. So the mural committee decided to choose this specific artist looking at their previous work. So this is the previous work examples from the artist that was chosen for Kosciuszko. And these are some more of those images, but this really drives home more so that Instagrammable or organic social media content component of it. Because the work is so good, we see people interacting with it in a positive way without that gimmicky carnival concept. So the artist receives a creative brief, the artist is chosen, signs a contract, and then the artist is told, present us with 2 to 3 concepts inspired by the creative brief. So the jury, comprised of community members and also some artists, all sat in and silently looked through these and voted. So we are going to look at the 3 proposals sent by the artist as a result of the very long creative brief from Kosciuszko County. The first design is this, the white ducks, which are actually the domesticated duck, and these are depicting those egg-laying ducks that were mentioned quite literally in that creative brief. The next thing that was mentioned again is that bird watching, the native wildlife, the ducks that exist in the over 100 lakes. And he also incorporated the kayaks, which is something that was mentioned in that natural resources section. So that outdoor recreation component was also added to this particular proposal. And the third option the community got to review was that of Thaddeus Kosciuszko himself. So this is the depiction of the historical figure that was included in the history section in the brief. So a couple of things that we didn't expect, a couple of things that they did expect. Overall, they were really happy with these 3 choices, and the community silently voted in the system and submitted their votes online, and the design that was selected was this piece, the natural native bird depicted in a wildlife setting with kayakers. So this is the mural that ultimately happened. So you see the proposal above, and you see the actual mural that's on the building today in the photo below. And we actually learned quite a lot. There's a couple key takeaways from this particular mural experience. One, if you don't want it in the mural, don't put it in the mural. Don't put it in your creative brief. So we saw where they were actually really surprised that the white egg-laying ducks were added to their proposal, but they'd put it in a creative brief. So ultimately, they had inspired the artist to create that design. And if they really weren't comfortable seeing those white ducks depicted in the mural, they should not have put that into their creative brief. So it's a good lesson to learn. We don't need to put every single thing into our brief, especially if we don't want to see it depicted in a mural. The next thing that we need to keep in mind is, if you do want it put in the brief, put it there. Know that it could happen in the mural, but don't expect it to be included in the proposal options. This community was really specifically surprised that their orthopedics industry wasn't depicted somehow in any of the proposal options. They did mention it in their brief, along with a lot of other things, but it just so happened that the artist didn't choose it. While they were surprised and they would have maybe liked the orthopedics industry to be represented in at least one option, it didn't happen. Partly because their brief was so long, but partly because sometimes an artist just isn't going to be inspired by every single thing you put into the brief. So be ready for that. And the last part was really learn the lesson that this artist is going to reinterpret what it is you put into the brief. So just because you indicate that you have bird watching, you can't expect that he or she is going to pick the one bird that you are known for unless you list that bird or suggest that bird as an idea. So just consider that throughout this process, longer is not necessarily better. Being specific can really land in your favor, but including it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be included in your mural. So we have a couple of other really quick examples before you get started, because I don't want to spend all of your time talking about how this should go. I really want to leave you some time to enjoy this process. So other examples in the city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, known for their three rivers. I think for some of the villages, I may have already mentioned the really unique story about the three rivers and the mural that resulted from it. So here are some of our 3 bars, logos, and artistic interpretations of our 3 rivers, where it was very literally 3 rivers. So we sent that exact same concept to artists who had never been to our community before, who had never been inundated with the idea of 3 bars of blue equals 3 rivers, and they gave us this, a reinterpretation of the concept. It's pink, first of all, not blue, which was really exciting. And we had 3 women depicted as 3 water nymphs, all pouring out of water made from, I guess, jugs made from fish and swans. But the whole idea of the 3 rivers concept that we'd all appreciated and known in Fort Wayne for so long was turned on its head. And we got this new reinterpretation of that idea, and we absolutely love it. So you put it into the brief, it might actually get completely reinterpreted, turned on its head, and come out looking amazing and be something you just didn't expect. And a storytelling can still happen, but it might not happen in the way you expect it to happen. Lastly, let's look at a good creative brief. This is very short, very sweet, and to the point. When I first sent a creative brief over to Leo Cedarville, they only came back with 1 word. After many weeks of back and forth, they had sent me the word lion, which wasn't quite enough. So try not to be that short and sweet. But after I sat back down with them and really talked through, what I discovered was they were really getting hung up on the history component of their creative brief. They wanted to add everything or nothing, and it was ending in these long discussions about what should go and what shouldn't. So at the end of the day, I took history off the table in our sit down, and we really got to talking about other components that made their community unique. And what they landed on was a story that they had completely forgotten to tell, and that was that of Ab Crosby, a founder of Crosby and Hydradyne boats. So these boats were so popular that even the President of the United States at the time ordered one of these boats. And they were founded, built in this community, and they had completely forgotten to tell that story in their creative brief because they'd gotten so hung up on 200 years past instead of the 1960s and 70s when they really had this amazing industrial thing happening and a company founded by a famous national boat racer. The other thing that they mentioned was the lion, but when we got down to our pulse, we learned that Leo Cedarville, because of the name Leo, all of the primary school and the high school's mascots is the lion. So that's really where that lion came from. And it was nice to know that that's actually the mention and that's the piece of it that was important. And it really was more about school systems and community pride than it was just the word lion. So we got to the bottom of the lion in the end. This was some additional information they provided the artist in their creative brief. This is an excerpt from a book, not the entire book, just 1 page that shows really the history of the boats in the event that that's something that the artist would want to do. So the Crosby boat ended up being something that really inspired the artist. And while I won't show you today what the artist ended up doing, I can let you know that at the end of the day, it was a much nicer creative brief from just the word lion, and a much better thing to send this type of brief to the artist than it was that novel that Kosciuszko County wrote. So when we look at our own creative brief, we put in the first things first, your village name, so that we are sure to get going with the right community. We had a few come in without titles on them, and that can get really confusing when I'm expecting 9 to come my way. So that being said, Really observe the 100 words or less component of these briefs. Ask yourselves, what components of your history are you really proud of? What has the community been known for? What's a story that maybe the community has forgotten that we'd like to still embody and tell? Go ahead and go through one by one. If you get stuck up on one, skip it. Maybe you don't even need to add it. Maybe you don't have an architectural feature in your community that you're specifically interested in sharing with the world. Maybe you do. Maybe you do have a festival that you hold every single season and you want to put that into your pulse. Maybe you have nothing like that going on, so you can skip number 5. So don't get hung up on this. Enjoy this process. Louise is here to help guide you through. At the end of the day, she'll take some notes and we'll reconvene and return a creative brief draft to you that hopefully everyone can approve of, and we can go on to the next step, artist conversations and selections. I really hope you enjoy this. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing what it is that all of you put together in your Live Co Walls creative briefs. Thank you. Have a great day.